Hi, this is Colin from the History Pilgrim. I hope you've been enjoying my videos and would be interested to hear your comments. Be sure to like and share with a friend. Canada is the second largest nation on Earth by surface area. This country, which spans a massive distance of over 3 million square miles, borders 3 of the world's oceans and has more lakes than the rest of the world's countries combined. Despite its vast expanse, Canada's population is shockingly small, less than 40 million people. This paradox of an enormous landmass covering a substantial portion of the Earth's surface containing so few people is very surprising. This video covers some other quirks about Canada's geography. Number 10. Canadian climate is a reason that it is not a world power. Canada's climate is certainly its most formidable challenge, but it is also sadly the reason that Canada never became the superpower that the US did. Despite containing vast areas which are further south in latitude than much of Western Europe, Canada has more land which extends northward above its southernmost reaches than any other nation does. Without having the benefit of the moderating effects of the jet stream that places such as Great Britain do, nothing prevents polar air masses from reaching far south into the nation aside from British Columbia. This means much of southern Canada suffers from extremely harsh winters. Because most of the northern reaches of the country are so cold and hard to get to, many of the early settlers chose not to travel far beyond the southernmost parts of the country. Huge portions of eastern Canada are also covered by barren, rocky soil, which renders traditional farming all but impossible. Without having a steady supply of food, places like Newfoundland and New Brunswick turn to the ocean as its main food source. While products such as salmon, scallops, and lobster may have been valued as exports to the British or French Empire, seafood simply does not offer the same benefits as, let's say, grain, rice, or corn farming does in growing massive populations, which meant that much of Canada needed to rely tragically high on imported food from the British Crown, which rendered Canada as far more heavily dependent on the British Empire for longer than the US. Number 9. The lakes are the country's most powerful asset. One benefit Canada does have is its abundance of fresh water. The Great Lakes, which were able to absorb sunlight and store warmth, as well as contain areas along its shoreline with soft, porous soil, means that the Great Lakes are very much the cradle of Canadian civilization. The most farmable land in all of Canada is contained along its shores, and its great depths and surface area, more similar to a sea than a system of lakes, led to the growth of shipping in the region of furs and timber and the creation of major cities. The St. Lawrence River allowed European explorers to reach the interior of North America, much easier than trekking inland over the Appalachian Mountains. The St. Lawrence River being a major waterway led to the establishment of Montreal, which began as a French fur trading settlement and which is the world's busiest inland river port. Number 8. Canada never had the same revolutionary spirit as its southern neighbor did. While the US gained its independence through a revolution, Canada chose to stay loyal to the British Empire, so long in fact that it was not until after World War II that the last province of Canada, Newfoundland, left the British Crown. In 1812, the then city of York, Canada, now called Toronto, was where British Loyalist troops left to siege and almost destroy Washington, D.C. It is possible that Canada simply never really billed itself early on as the land of opportunity that the US did, and maintained most of its population through its early French and British settlers, and only began to grow more gradually with British and French immigrants as more natural resources were discovered. By contrast, the US expanded westward into much more arable land and drew more settlers in as railroads expanded westward, and push factors drove European immigrants from countries like Germany and Norway towards the Great Plains. This is not to say that Canada has never had an immigrant population, as Montreal is the second largest city in the French-speaking world after only Paris, and Alberta has more people of Ukrainian ancestors of anywhere in the world. Additionally, more Chinese people in the world outside of Asia call Vancouver home. Number 7. Canada has what is possibly the most French city on Earth outside of France. Founded in 1608 by Samuel Champlain, Quebec City is often heralded as the most European-feeling city outside of Europe. This characterization is not merely a matter of coincidence, but is rooted in the city's historical legacy, distinctive architectural styles, and vibrant cultural practices. Quebec City's European essence is the result of its colonial past and cultural preservations. Despite the British conquest of Quebec, which ended in the Treaty of Paris and the British Empire taking over, French culture and language persisted. Quebec City's architectural landscape is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its well-preserved 17th century buildings, narrow cobblestone streets, and quaint facades which evoke a distinctly European environment. Quebec City is a majority French-speaking city and the only city in North America which is entirely walled. It is hard to fathom that a city so identical to a French city is closer to Boston, Massachusetts than Washington, D.C. is from Boston. Number 6, the 3 northernmost Canadian provinces are almost entirely native people. Canada's 3 northernmost provinces, the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, represent Canada's Arctic frontier. Nunavut is home to the Inuit people who have called the region home for tens of thousands of years. Inuit culture is deeply connected with the land and the sea. Similar to some Russian republics, this province, while under the control of Canadian sovereignty, maintains majority Inuit culture and language, which are respected and protected by the Canadian government. Few places on Earth have seen the effects of climate change more than the northern provinces of Canada. There are some remote settlements in this region of Canada where people of European ancestors live because the region is rich in natural resources such as uranium, oil, and gold. Despite being larger than many countries, only around 43,000 people live in Nunavut. Number 5. Newfoundland has strong ties to transatlantic travel. Newfoundland is Canada's easternmost province and maintains a strong maritime culture. This province is perhaps most well known for the Lance Axe Meadows. This settlement was established around 1000 AD by Norse explorer Leif Erikson. The location is located on the northern tip of Newfoundland along the Gulf of St. Lawrence. This area was chosen for its access to abundant natural resources and its relatively sheltered harbor. The site contains 8 buildings which are thought to be the remnants of longhouses and several smaller structures typical of Viking settlements of the time. Newfoundland is perhaps most famous for the most ill-fated transatlantic journey of all time, as the Titanic sank less than 400 miles off its coast. On the night of April 15, 1912, as news spread of its sinking, the RMS Carpathia played a role in its rescue efforts. As part of the British Empire, there was already a huge number of wireless operators located in the area to respond to the disaster. In more modern times, the airfield in Gander, Newfoundland served as a point where many transatlantic flights bound for the U.S. were diverted when the U.S. airspace was shut down following the 9/11 attacks. Number 4, Toronto, Canada has one of the largest Asian immigrant communities on Earth. With over 3 million residents in the city proper, Toronto is Canada's largest city. When including its greater metropolitan area, that number goes up to 6 million people. Toronto is home to a significant Asian community, with approximately 45% of its population identifying as such. This includes Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Indian, Philippine, and Vietnamese people. This reflects the city's role as a magnet for Asian immigrants and expats. As a result, the food in Toronto from all of these countries is rivaled only by their mother countries. Number 3, the Trans-Canada Railroad is the reason one of the world's most stunning places is so famous. The Trans-Canada Railroad linked the east coast of Canada to the Pacific Ocean in 1885. The railway was a monumental engineering feat which facilitated the movement of people and goods across the country and played a crucial role in the development of Canada's western frontier. During the railroad construction, amazing natural scenery such as the area that would be designated Banff National Park was discovered. In response to the discovery of such amazing natural areas, the Canadian government designated the area a national park. The Trans-Canada Railroad played a key role in constructing the infrastructure to bring tourists to this remote region of the country. Number 2, Canada is the world's leading maple syrup producer. Canada stands as the world's top producer of maple syrup, with more than 80% of the world's maple syrup produced in the country. So huge is its influence, the maple leaf is the national symbol of Canada. Maple is to Canada what curry is to India, with maple being a distinct flavor to Canadian cuisine. Montreal is known for its rich French-inspired culinary heritage. A dish to be sure to try in Montreal is maple braised pork belly, a dish which combines French braising with Canadian maple. Number 1, hockey is more popular in Canada than anywhere else in the world. Hockey has long been associated with Canadian identity. Canada's long cold winters are very supportive of ice sports. While hockey is popular nationwide, it's particularly popular in Quebec and Ontario. The NHL, with its significant Canadian presence, contributes greatly to its national presence. Franchises in places like Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal contribute to the national economy through ticket sales. Among Canadian teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs hold a particularly strong place. In conclusion, Canada is a very unique country which stands out distinctly from the US and which all people should visit at least once in their life. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd be interested to hear your comments. Be sure to like and share with a friend. Sincerely, the History Pilgrim.